Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Boisterous coming to you with some one-goal action out of the map Aquilon Waste. Spying up here in the top of the left-hand corner, we do a Lalush as the red Zerg. Down here in the bottom of the right-hand corner, we have his opponent, Fanatic Harstem, as the pink Protoss. And you guys are probably wondering, what's one goal? How does this work? What is this? And one goal is a melee map creation that kind of takes StarCraft 2 and just adds a little bit extra depth to it, adds a little bit of difference to it. It's really fun to play. You guys should definitely check it out. There will be the titles of all the maps in the description, along with a link to the changes that you might want to go up and refresh yourself on, and just look at. I shouldn't say refresh, but look at before you watch this video, because it's different. It's very different. Like, the Immortal has been weakened severely, but is now basically the replacement for the Stalker. It's like the Dragoony unit, where the Stalker used to be, but the Stalker is now a robotics class unit that you build from the gateway, and it's very, very confusing. I'll go over the changes as they kind of approach, because otherwise I'm just going to look stupid. I'm going to be sitting here listing 20,000 different things with nothing else to talk about. So basically, I'm just going to do a real quick announcement section here. After this game, which is going to be put out on a Sunday, I will be doing one-goal games, hopefully every week on Thursdays, along with my regular commentating on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. I missed Saturday yesterday just because Massachusetts got hit by a massive, massive freaking snowstorm, and I had to shovel. Like, everybody, all day. Everybody was just, like, clobbered with 3 feet of snow. So there was a lot of shoveling, and now my back is in pain. But, it's all good. It's all good. We have the gateway coming up for Harstem along with the Assimilator. And we also have a spawning pool for Lalush. So very, very standard plays. It looks like Lalush is going to be moving out for that hatchery at this point, and not overtly surprising. Again, this map is kind of different, so the metagame is actually almost completely different than the StarCraft 2 current metagame. So anyway, I'm just going to really quickly go over the changes to the gateway. You will see that there is a Zealot, an Immortal, and a Stalker in that top row instead of a Zealot, Stalker, and Sentry. And the Stalker actually requires a Twilight Council. I said Robotics Bay, but I meant Twilight Council. And it's basically, it's been strengthened to reflect that. It also has the blink ability. Its cost is still the same. The Immortal has had its cost reduced. It also had its shields and armor reduced by, like, a lot. There's not a lot on the Immortal anymore. Also, interestingly enough, the Immortal shields, the one that reduces damage if it's done over 10, now has a 3-second cooldown until it's upgraded at the Twilight Council. So, say if you hit it with a Siege Tank volley, and then a second Siege Tank fired right after, it would take full damage from the second Siege Tank blast, but it would only take 10 from the first one. So it has kind of fit into that area. Also, they have been upgraded to shoot air, which is an interesting choice. As another quick note about this game, and there's going to be a lot of just me talking about this mod, a lot of it, because it's very complex and there's a lot of levels to it and it's very different. There is actually now a medium armor class now. It's not just light and heavy, or light and armored. So you are going to see a lot of things like the Hydralisk, which is now a tier 1 unit. I know, is going to have sort of a medium armor class. And whereas the Immortal, still armored, but it does 15 damage to light, 20 to medium, and 25 to armored. So it kind of scales differently. It adds a third, class of armor to the game, which I think is actually kind of a nice thing to do, because it limits the hard counters. Because it used to be Hydralisks were hard countered by Hellions. But now they're not, because they're medium. And Hellions do slightly less damage to medium, but not quite the amount of damage that they do to armored, which is like 0. They do no damage to armored. Also, you're going to see Stalkers be medium units. They still have blink. They can still be produced out of the Warp Gate. Interestingly enough, you'll also see the Warp Gate being at the Twilight Council level. So if you're wondering why Harstem is not yet researching it, it's because it's at the Twilight Council. It gives you the Warp Gate ability, but it also reduces the build time on all gateway units by 5 seconds. So you'll see the Immortal go down to 35 seconds if you're building it out of a straight gateway. We see a little bit of pressure from the Immortals happening here. It looks like we are going to have a snipe down on Lalush's first queen, but an Immortal is going to go down here. We might even see a second one go down. They're at least going to have to run for their lives. The circling is not happening quite well for Lalush. Metabolic boost is on the way, but it's not going to be finished in time. And we are going to see our players just kind of sit back, step back into a regular macro game. Lalush going for an actually kind of fast third expansion. 7 minutes, already having your third hatch up is extremely fast. I think that kind of just reflects the fact that Warp Gate is not as good anymore. There's definitely a trade-off to having Warp Gate as opposed to Gateway, because again, you do need to go to that Twilight Council. You do need to drop a little bit more money. I think it's actually double cost onto the Warp Gate tech. And, you know, it's just better to keep it as a gateway for a while at least. It's going to be interesting to see what Harstem does as far as tech goes, because we are going to see a lot of very distinctive tech choices come out from the Protoss players when they're playing this match. It looks like a couple of the Immortals are now going to go down. They are, of course, not all that great versus the lightness of the Lings. And it looks like he is going to be falling back to his position, and yeah, he's just going to be covering his base door. There's basically going to be no way for these Zerglings to break through here. We do have the Hydralisk then, and now in building position progression building. I'm just going to say building. Man, I completely production. That was the word I was looking for. Wow, I suck at finding words. Oh my God, I work so hard to be this terrible, and I am quite proud of myself. Anyway, the Hydralisk then is now in production, and you might be wondering like, but he hasn't built a layer yet. And that's because the Hydralisk then is now the tier 1.5 unit. It's the kind of roachy unit. It actually, I think it needs an upgrade to hit air. Yep, it needs grooved spines to actually be able to hit air, which is interesting. I kind of like that change. It's pretty cool, because it really does give the Hydralisks a new job, and it allows them to be one cost units, because they now only cost one supply. So the Zerg is back to having that kind of very swarmy feel that they had in the StarCraft Brood War days, where they had this very base unit that was extremely good at just being a very basic army unit. And that was the Hydralisk. It had one supply, it was medium armor, and it was good against basically everything. But it wasn't great against anything in particular. So if you had an opponent going for something very specific like the Reaver, you would need to go for a different set of units than the Hydralisk. However, just having the Hydralisks in your army was reasonable. It was a good choice, just because there were Hydralisks, and everyone built Hydralisks in every situation, because why the hell wouldn't you? They're good units. You will also see the Roachborn being able to upgrade into the Deepborn, and essentially the Deepborn allows the construction of the Swarm Host, which have the models of StarCraft 2 lurkers, just by the way, for this game. So if you see like a lurker and you're like, what the fuck? Why is it shooting out locusts? It's because it's actually a Swarm Host. Just don't worry about it. Just live with it. It'll be fine. It looks like we do have grooved spines just about to finish up for Lalush, so he will be able to target air with these Hydralisks and potentially get a snipe off on that mothership core. There is, of course, this is a Wings of Liberty map, by the way. So if you do want to play Wings of Liberty, and do something that's kind of like the Hots Beta, it has most of the Hots Beta units. In fact, I think it has all of the Hots Beta units. I know it has the Oracle. I know it has the Swarm Host. I know it has the Hellbat. I'm not sure. I think it has the Widowmine, but I'm not quite sure on that one. I haven't really played Terran. And yeah, I haven't really played Terran, but there's a lot of the kind of hot stuff in it. It's, again, just a very interesting map to test out. If you like it, you're going to love it. If you don't, then you're not. But I would definitely go check it out. Don't hate on it before you play it, because please, guys, I know it's the internet, but don't be dicks. Just don't. It looks like we do have Lalush pushing down his rocks, maybe even thinking about expanding it to a 5th base. He does basically have this entire side of the map covered, which is interesting. Usually, you'll see players go for this base before this base, just because it's way easier to defend, because, you know, you don't need to run your units up like 4 ramps to get to this base. However, with the sentries being at robotics tech and not being able to force field on the 2nd ramp quite as efficiently, I could see it being effective. Also, some more interesting tips about the Protoss army, because again, this is like my introductory cast, so I'm kind of going over a lot of the basics of this game. As I go into more regularly casting this, I will probably just treat it as a normal game, but I just want to kind of talk about this, and then be able to refer people back to this video if they ever watch one of the future ones, and be like, what the fuck is this? What is this? Isn't a ladder game. Basically, the Colossus does damage in a line now. And I don't mean like a side-by-side line, I mean like 2 straight lines it fires its projectiles. You'll see those a lot more in actual engagements, but it's interesting. Also, you're going to see their upgrade is now called latent thermal surge. Yeah, latent thermal surge. They're automatically at range 7. They cannot go up to range 9, actually. And basically, latent thermal surge lays down an area where those two lines hit, and then after 1.1.5 seconds, those lines explode and then deal damage to any enemy standing on top of it. So it kind of adds this ability to micro against Colossus and have them do just a little bit less damage. We do see these Colossus now doing that damage that they do, and there we go. Yeah, see, that was the latent primal surge right there, and we are going to see that quite a bit here. And yep, that's pretty painful. And just as another quick thing about the Colossus, it actually has a range 7, but if it shoots something at range 7, it will actually extend the beam out to range 10, I do believe. It'll fire 3 units away from the initial starting point. So it does really have a range 10, but you need a unit at range 7 to shoot that far. And again, lots of complex stuff that I'm trying to go over as fast as possible. Probably failing at it reasonably hard, but that's okay. We do have the Immortals picking up their upgrade for their hardened shields. And it basically makes that 3-second cooldown into a 0.5-second cooldown, which is pretty nice, because the 3-second cooldown on the hardened shields basically makes Immortals completely immortal after the first shot. But then, you know, once the hardened shields kind of gets that upgrade, and it's every 0.5 seconds, it's a lot harder to actually hit. Unless you have an actual siege tank line with a siege tank volley going down, where all 7 of your siege tanks hit an immortal at the same time, in which case it'll just die completely anyway. But, you know, same old, same old. Wow, this is a really complex game to try to explain. Anyway, we do have the Corruptors popping out, and interestingly enough, you're going to see the Mutalisks actually morphing into Corruptors in this game mode. They go into Corruptors, and they can also go into Broodlords. Corruptors actually can't go into Broodlords, but they can spawn Scourge. Yeah, I know, it's a lot to go over. Basically, Corruptors can build these things called volatile cocoons. And once volatile cocoons are built, they can lay them out onto the battlefield, and those volatile cocoons will spawn swarm? Yeah, swarm, that's what they're called. And those swarm will seek out an area unit and attack them. You can micro them, they only have a lifespan of 15 seconds, but you can micro them. We do see the health force fields, and I think I went over that, but I'm just going to go over it again to be quite perfectly sure. Basically, force fields are now neutral structures with 150 health. So, it basically means that if you're a Zerg player and you suck at making your Zerglings attack stuff, then you're going to suck at fighting Protoss players still with Zerglings, because you're not going to be able to attack the force fields, because your Zerglings aren't going to do it automatically for you. You need to micro them very specifically to do it. But at the same time, if you're good at it, then it actually lessens the effectiveness of those force fields, especially against melee units, and even against ranged units. And it kind of stops them from doing those kind of really wonky things that they do, where you can literally hold off an opening game until your opponent gets ranged forever if you just have like 4 or 5 sentries in your main base, because they literally can't do anything. We do have the Corruptors moving into a nice position here, and we are probably going to see some volatile cocoons going down to kind of stop the Colossus pressure. We do have the Colossus, of course, sniping out the 4th base of the Zerg player yet again, and then mass recalling back to, I do believe, the 3rd expansion. Yes, indeed. There are the volatile cocoons now going down. So these things are going to explode into Scourge pretty soon now. And there we do go. Wow, that was a lot of damage done to those 2 Colossus. So those volatile Scourge just took out actually 2 Colossus, which was pretty nice considering the fact that he only spent like 400 minerals to kill 2 Colossus. Pretty much worth it. We do have these 2 Colossus doing an actual pretty substantial amount of damage just because of how their AoE works now, where it shoots, you know, further back. We do have the neutral force fields going down. I'm surprised that Lalush is not actually trying to crush through these, because his army is pretty substantial at this point, especially with the massive amount of swarm hosts. And if he could actually manage to get his opponent to force an engagement up the hill, then he could be in a good position. It looks like these force fields are going to put Lalush in actually kind of an awkward stance, and he's just going to fight as hard as he can, but as hard as he can is not that hard of a fight. We do have changelings going down in interesting positions, kind of doing their best to act almost like force fields, and kind of stopping and hindering the movement of these stalkers, which is something cool that I haven't seen before. I'm not sure if you can actually do that in play in StarCraft 2, but if you could, that would be pretty freaking awesome. I've never seen someone try to do that before. Huh. We do have the Infestation Pit on the way for Lalush. Harstem is kind of just sitting at the same tech he's been at for a while. I don't think he's ever gone for the Warp Gate. No, he has not. So his units are still producing 5 seconds 5 seconds fast or slower than they should be, and that's kind of a surprise. You would have thought that as soon as that upgrade opens up, you would go for it, because that warp gate upgrade, just for pure amount of units you can put out, is very, very useful. Even if you don't even use it for the warp gate part, just having the reduction on the gateway build time is quite useful. It looks like we do have an engagement going down here. The Colossus will get sniped without being able to do any amount of damage to the Hydralisks, which is a little bit annoying. 3 Overseers are going to be going down here. It looks like we do have Lalush not burrowing his Swarm Hosts. A little bit irresponsible there. There we do have the burrow finally going down. This thing's burrow very, very fast. It looks like we have all of the Corruptors doing as much damage as they can, but that's none. So we have the Stalkers just kind of killing them. And we do have the army from Lalush now moving in, going for maybe what he thinks is the 4th base or the 6th base or whatever number base would be for Harstem. But there's no base there, so he's actually not going to go kill a base. It looks like we do have 10 Swarm Hosts now on the way for Lalush. That's quite a few Swarm Hosts. I'm actually not sure. Do they cost extra food? Yes, they do cost 1 extra food. So that actually makes Swarm Hosts worth 3 food apiece, which is not amazingly effective as far as food count goes, because they're units that are very good at locking down an area, but they're not all that great at invading a base, because Locusts have an extremely short range. I think it's 2. And you're going to see, and you probably have seen a lot of this, where Harstem kind of just jukes back as soon as the Locusts come, and there you go. And as soon as these Locusts are dead, in what, 15 seconds, you're perfectly fine, and there's nothing they can do. And they only have 2 range, so you'll see a lot of them get screwed on cliffs like that. Where, you know, you have your opponent blink up the cliff along with walking their Colossus up the cliff, and then you're like, well, shit, don't I feel bad? It looks like we do have Harstem moving for a bit of a snipe on the 5th base of Lalush, but there is no 5th base currently, so he's just going to be going right in for the main. And this is kind of an awkward position, because he's going to get surrounded by the Zerg army, and there's going to be a lot of Zerg pouring in here. That's quite a few Hydralisks currently in production. We have 10 Mutalisks also in production, probably going to be morphed right into those Corruptors, those extremely useful Corruptors now. And there are the Swarm Hosts moving in onto the 3rd base of the Protoss player, dropping down a lot of Locusts, killing off the site that he had. And nice, this is actually doing quite a bit of damage. These Locusts are pretty freaking dangerous. In fact, they're even doing a reasonable amount of damage as far as sniping Stalkers and Pylons goes. However, the army from Harstem is moving up and doing quite a bit of damage to the main base of Lalush. It's getting severely weakened by these Roach attacks, because Roaches are, of course, quite powerful units now. They do a lot of damage, to be quite perfectly honest. And they basically just train through a lot of stuff. They do 20 damage to all armor types, which is pretty useful in this game mode, as we do see, you know, a lot of things being medium and doing extra damage to whoa, they took out Stalker armored units. So actually, Stalkers are bad against armored units now. Interesting. Didn't even notice that. Huh. I really should have read that entire 9-paragraph essay I got on this game. But anyway, we do have Harstem tapping out and GGing out. I hope you guys enjoyed this, but, you know, it's going to get better, because this is, of course, the first time I've ever commentated a game from this map, and it's a big change, to say the least, from normal commentating. It's a massive difference from the average game of StarCraft 2, and I hope you guys do go out and you find the custom map and you enjoy it, because it's actually... it's pretty balanced. It's pretty fun to play. It's pretty back and forth a lot. There's big macro games like this that go on, and this honestly counts for most of the games. It actually eliminated a lot of the issues that you saw with players having, where cheesing was just so prevalent, by, you know, moving warp gate tech, making Hydralisks tier 1 and Roaches tier 2, because Hydralisks are a little bit weaker than Roaches when you consider their cost per damage. Whereas, you know, Roaches were very good at just doing those very big all-ins. Having the Immortals in the place on the tech tree that they are is very interesting, and really you need to go out and you need to play through this game mode, and you need to just test it out. And I would definitely suggest it, because it's a great game mode, and these guys are doing just a wonderful job, and I hope that this partnership lasts for quite a while. So anyway, guys, this is if you want your games commentated, I almost completely forgot to say this part. If you want your games commentated, you can send them on into boisteroussc2@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to watch any other Boisterous action, you can head over to youtube.com/user/boisteroussc2. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and this is Boisterous, signing out.